organization of the Commission, the existing climate change task forces and bodies, such as the Presidential Task Force on Climate Change created under Administrative Order number 171, and the Interagency Committee on Climate Change created by virtue of Administrative Order number 220 shall be abolished. In other words, they are already abolished upon the effectivity of the bill, of the law, provided that their powers and functions shall be absorbed by the Commission, provided further that the officers and employees thereof shall continue in the whole overcapacity until such time as the new officers and employees of the Commission shall have been duly appointed pursuant to the provisions of this Act. And this is, to me, one of the best parts of the Climate Change Commission Act, because as a member of Congress, I've been a personal witness to some intramurals between and among these task forces and interagency committee. As I said, if you listen to one, you'd be surprised that the position of one may differ, may be different from the position of the other. There is also one very important position. The President is the chairman, but we have the Executive Director of the Climate Change Commission. It is the hope of this principal author of the Climate Change Act of 2009 that the Executive Director, who will be appointed by the President, is someone without any political background. It is the hope of this representation that the one to be appointed as Executive Director is someone who is a pure scientist, because it is my view that climate change is a pure science issue, and politicians should probably participate in crafting laws, should participate in the debate, but running the Climate Change Commission at the technical level should be the pure province of a pure scientist. And that is my hope. Now, who are the players in the international climate change debate? We have the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which has conducted a number of, this is the IPCC, conducted a number of assessment reports. In 1990, they had a supplementary report in 1992, 1995, 2001, and then 2007, and they're now working on the 5th assessment report on climate change for 2014. So as I said, the jury is still out, because if you examine the assessment report of 1990, there would be a variance compared with 1992. There would be some changes in 1995. There would be further changes in 2001 and then 2007, and I would imagine there will be more changes in 2014, because science, even if we look at this as a pure science endeavor, science is still a going concern. There's so much to learn as far as science is concerned. There is so much to resolve. The science that I learned when I was in high school was so different from the science that I learned when I was in the United States Naval Academy, which is a science-oriented academy. And the science that I'm now reading on the internet, and I have a lot of these materials coming in, are so different from the science that I studied when I was in the United States Naval Academy. And I would imagine that in the coming years, things are going to change further. I also would like the reason I mentioned that the head of the Executive Director of the Climate Change Commission should be a pure scientist is because of the fact that if you look at the issues of global warming, the issues are basically very scientific. Even the way that global warming is happening, it is the increase in the average temperature of the Earth's near surface and air oceans since the mid-20th century. And climate change is affected by the development in the sun, by the tectonic plate incidents, by the movement of the currents, by the orbit, and of course by human intervention, by human activities. On global warming, the next slide please. Here we show you the temperature anomaly from 1975 up to 2010. The variances in the temperature variation since 1979, plotted since January 1982. And then the global temperature variances, the next slide, would be the global temperature variances from 1880, 1900, 1920, 1940, 1960. This is the global mean surface temperature difference from the average. The statisticians and the mathematicians will be very familiar with this figure. This is not the temperature per se, but these are the global mean surface temperature difference from the average from 1961 up to, from 1880 up to the year 2000. So you can see that it will vary from something like minus 0.4 to something like 0.6, as you can see from the chart. And then from 1999 to 2009, the global mean temperatures. Temperature changes, according to their study, the next slide please, rose from 0.74 degree plus or minus 0.18 over the period 1906 to 2005. That is a 100-year period, 0.74. Some people might think that this is very slight, because if you go from this room to the outside, you will feel a temperature change of more than 0.74 degrees, maybe even 10 degrees from this room to the outside. So you can see that it will be very easy to adapt to a temperature change like that. But according to experts, and this is my principal concern also, that for every degree change in temperature upward, there may be a 10% reduction in our food production capability. And the more vulnerable countries would be in the developing countries, not so much in the developed countries, but more in the developing countries. And how do we respond to global warming? Of course, this word debate is going to be, and I hope that there will be a very vigorous debate in the Climate Change Commission and also in Congress and also in the NGOs, whether it should be mitigation or should it be adaptation. And if you look at mitigation, for example, here is one example of mitigation. Carbon capture and storage. Can we have the mitigation, the previous back, please. There. This is a graph, a chart of